to give a chance for people to arrive with a bit of latency. And with this, we'll be looking for minutes takers. Is there a candidate to help us take some minutes? The Etherpad is indicated on this page. It's also indicated in the next page. It would be really cool that you guys can attend the Etherpad and take some notes. In particular, if you're going to talk to the mic, then please make sure that the minutes capture correctly what you're going to say. And with this, so do we have somebody helping on the minutes? Nice, thank you very much. Do we have Jabber Scribe? It's a very small room, I'm not sure. Anybody going to Jabber? Okay. You can? Yeah. Oh, please. Thank you. And with this, we are going to start the meeting. So this is 6TISCH. This is a usual IETF meeting. So we go by all the rules of the IETF, and there is a list of best practices about processes, harassments, etc. And in particular, we've got the best practices applying to IPR. So if you're aware of IPR on anything that's going to be discussed today, please tell the room or let the chairs know by the end of the meeting. With this, remember, you are being filmed. The movie will be played on YouTube. Thousands and hundreds of people will visualize it. So be very smart. And so we'll publish the minutes and the recording. You need to sign the blue sheets. We're going to pass them along in a few minutes. Please go online on the Etherpad and contribute to minutes taking and validating the minutes. And you'll find the usual links about the 6TISCH activities on this page. And with this, we can start the agenda bashing. So basically, we're going to tell you where we are with this working group, our progress, the status of the documents and related documents in other working groups. We'll go through the milestones, and then we'll decide what we do next. We'll have 10 minutes on the status of the architecture, then go to minimal security. That's going to be Manisha. Then we'll have Michael, if he joins. He sent us some slides. He's not there yet. And we'll have Diego remotely. So Diego, did you? I see you. So I hope you could set up your Mitico correctly. Then yes, we have.
Thank you.
Okay, that's nice. We can hear you already, so that's good. And then we have Tang Fei. Tang Fei, same thing. Could you set up your Mitico correctly? Tang Fei. Well, I hope it works. And maybe the most unusual and final discussion we'll have today is what's next, because as we'll see, we have pretty much concluded all the work items for which we were chartered, which kind of means that either we recharter or we just soft land. So that's going to be the discussion. So if you have items that you want to discuss in this working group in the future, then it's a good time to speak now. Okay, and with this, a little bit of status on the other working groups. So as you know, 6TISCH has spent more time actually pushing work in other working group than doing individual work inside this working group. We mostly worked around an architecture and open source implementations and interrupt tests. And to make all those things happen, then we had a number of dependencies on a number of working groups. So there is a list of documents that we actually promoted in other working groups. So in 6LOW, we've got all the fragmentation work. So there are 2 documents. They are both past work groups last call. And we started getting feedback from Dave Thaler on the minimal fragments. So there was a new respin of the minimal fragments. So those 2 drafts are basically in a good shape to go through ISG, and they are in Suresh caring hands. We also promoted work on 6LOPAD neighbor discovery. So that's one of them is now RFC 8505. And then we've got the address protection and the backbone router, which is ND proxy. So also all this work is in good shape and continuing through the ISG. We have this new draft that was proposed to completely get rid of multicast in neighbor discovery using central registrars. This is an individual submission, it's related to the other three, so that's why it's listed here, but I don't know what's going to happen with it. It's not needed in the 6TISCH architecture. It's beyond 6TISCH, it's on the backbone. And then we've got the deadline time, which is also going through ISG. At RAW, we've been promoting the SDN model, and that's where the DAO projection goes. There's also this work on a leaf, which would not be aware of Ripple. So using only 8505 to signal the presence of the leaf to the Ripple routing and mapping that into Ripple. So that's going well. Both documents have progressed, I would say, immensely since the last IETF. There were several rounds of each of those documents. And ROL is planning to push quite heavily on the unaware leaf because many documents are actually dependent on that one, including the 6TISCH architecture, by the way. And enrollment priority, I think the chairs have been asking for reviews on that one to get through the ISG, to do through the work group as called soon. And then we've got Anima with the constraint voucher, and I hope that Michael could tell us about it, but he's not there. Do you have news about the constraint voucher? Okay, so maybe Michael, when he speaks on the design team work on zero touch, will be able to give us news on the constraint voucher, because it's really the real meat on the zero touch is the constraint voucher. So here are the milestones that we had. I mean, two of them, Suresh, are still waiting for accept. But I mean, considering that it's just about submitting the draft to ISG and that the draft have actually been submitted, I mean, those are met. So the DT security zero touch is mostly empty of its content. We kept it just to keep the working group informed about the progress on the voucher work. So I guess it will never be submitted to ISG, or it will be moved to Anima or a place that will take care of it. And so there we go. The only item that's left is evaluate the work group progress and talk about rechartering or completing the work, basically. Yeah, it's another way of saying it. And with this, we'll move to the first presentation, and that's me, actually, on the architecture. So I will move to the mic. So the 6TISCH architecture may be viewed as maybe the most encompassing work at 6TISCH, because that's really what shows what we wanted to achieve in this working group and why we pushed so many work items in different working groups and the overall picture that we wanted to build. So there are a number of components that were done at home, like the minimal security, MSF, etc., 6P protocol, and then a good number of work items which are actually done outside the working group. But the architecture is the document that puts all things in perspective and also indicates direction we want to take for new work, which may not happen in 6TISCH at all, such as RAW, for instance, this buff that we had on Wednesday. So there are really two pieces in one document. We could have done two documents. Some people said we should, but we have a very high-level architecture that goes into the main components and articulates them. And then we've got a deeper dive into some components which are more specific to 6TISCH and that are being explained. For instance, there is this concept of a track that is now inherited by the work at RAW. So we actually, well, we went through the ISG review. So we had 4 reviews since the last IETF. That's Eric, Miria, Roman, and Benjamin. With Benjamin, obviously, we went through a deep review of the security section, but not only. Benjamin has been going very thoroughly through the whole document. And thanks to Malisha and you, actually, so thank you. We actually did a lot of work on the security section and expanded quite a bit. So that's one of the big changes. We also extended the discussion of the various forms of diversities that are available on radios, which are not necessarily the pre-auth that are found in .NET. So we clarified that. We expanded on the join process as well, and the minimal thing. And Miria insisted that we had, well, and not only Miria, but that we had too many references and they were not really well classified into normative and non-normative, with the understanding that this is not a standard track document. This is an informational track, but there's still a meaning for normative. And that meaning is, if you need to understand the reference to understand this document, then the reference is normative, right? So it's not normalization, if you like. It's really that, like, you can't understand this document without understanding the other. If that's the case, then the reference is normative. Otherwise, just you can't avoid reading it. It's informative, just for your own reading if you like to. So we actually had to move and shuffle around the references to clarify what's normative. The problem with that is by putting more documents into normative, we also created a good number of misref. Misref being those documents which are normative reference to yours, but are not yet RFC. So you cannot publish the architecture before all of the misrefs are also published as RFC. And there are now like 6 or 7 misrefs, including the raw document that I showed, including minimal security, including MSF, etc. All those documents are now normative references, and we have to wait for those to be RFC before the architecture is RFC. So the RFC is the architecture is really the document that will close the door of all the work that has been done at 6TISCH. When this is RFC, then all the work we've done is RFC as well. And that also makes sure that the architecture is completely compatible and represents well the work which is done in the other document. Even if they change, we'll have to change the architecture to represent that correctly. And that's pretty much all I had to say about the architecture. So do we have any question? Okay, so if you're interested in the work that we try to start with RAW, RAW, Reliable Variable Wireless, you can see RAW as being a next phase for 6TISCH, but focusing on the routing aspect of it. That's why it's done in the routing area, and more precisely on the operation of a 6TISCH track. Now, RAW is not specific to 6TISCH at all. It's aimed to be abstract, to be a completely layer-free operation, but it inherits certainly from the designs that we've done for tracks and all this capability to have this directed cyclic graph to a certain destination and make intelligent forwarding decisions along this track. So RAW will be focusing on that if the group forms. And that's pretty much it for now.
Okay, thank you, Pascal. Okay, so I will talk about the minimal security document, which was renamed to be the constraint joint protocol for 6TISCH after one ISG review. The current status is the document is in it's in 13th version. The ISG reviews have been received, as well as OBDIR and SecDIR reviews and GenArt. The goal of this presentation is essentially to go through the main changes in 12 and 13 and discuss the issues raised during the ISG reviews. So after the last meeting, we discussed some text prohibiting the mixing of different levels of authentication tags. This was incorporated in 12. We added a new subsection on ASN replay attack after the last meeting discussions. And we also added some mandatory support for extended token set JRC as was received a comment offline from Klaus Hartke from Core. We received two reviews, pre-ISG reviews, one OBSDIR and one secDIR review. There were mostly nits. One concerned, one added a new requirement that concerns recommissioning of a device, where we added the requirement that the pre-shared key must be changed in case the device is recommissioned. And during the secDIR review, these were mostly nits that we received. ISG reviews, we got 4 discusses and 3 no objections, and 1 yes, I think, from Suresh. So the main goal of the presentation today will be to go through the open issues that we have on in ISG from ISG reviews. One issue that was brought up was related to the use of well-known URI for COGIP. And essentially, as it stands, we use the /J URI as a URI. We use /J. Yeah.
Suresh Krishnan, I think Adam had a suggestion like co-op // 6TISCH./.wellknown/J was his suggestion.
So there was a couple of parallel discussions on it. Essentially, we during the join phase, it was deemed okay that we can use /J as long as we use 6TISCH as the well-known host name.
Okay.
The problem was after the join exchange, the parameter update part of the protocol, where 6TISCH was missing, well-known URI host.
Correct.
So what we propose as a resolution is to use 6TISCH also in that case as well, so that it is isolated from all other uses of /J.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the proposed resolution.
Okay, so if you have an alternate proposal, make it. But there's also one of his comments which said like, how do you handle subdomains? He just wanted some clearer text on handling of subdomains. It was part of the comment, but I would like to still address it. He actually had text suggestion as well.
Yeah, so this was added. This was all added. I mean, I didn't bring it up here because I think we converged on that on the list.
Okay, cool.
But Michael added this in the document, essentially all the proposed text in from the mail thread.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah. So this should be resolved. I mean, we still haven't published the version, the official version of the document, but it's in the working copy. One comment that was received from Miria regards the parameter update response message, which is, as it now stands, empty. The parameter, this is a response to the parameter update message, which is a co-op confirmable message. And essentially, we defined for generality, essentially, another message that is a response, but that is essentially empty, that is piggybacked over co-op's confirmable response. And the question raised is completely legit, and it was like, why define our own protocol message when the response is confirmable, and so that we have an indication of reception at the sender of the parameter update message. So, I mean, why keep it essentially? And the proposed resolution is essentially to remove the parameter update response message from the protocol. Yeah. So another issue that was another comment that was received was from Ben Kadek. Yes.
Suresh Krishnan again. So for the congestion control parts, like, are you going to discuss it, or like you're agreed on the changes and it's done?
I consider it done because it was on the list. Yes.
Okay. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah. It has been discussed on the list and it was incorporated in the document, so I believe we're good to go there. Here, essentially the issues that I'm going through are the issues that haven't have had their resolutions in the working copy of the document.
Okay, no, makes sense. No, I just thought like, you wanted to discuss like all the stuff that came up during eval because you put all the positions in. So.
Okay. No. Yeah. No. Well, the proposed resolution there, I mean, it's quite simple and it works, I think. So it should be fine. So regarding this issue that Ben Kadek raised, it concerns the traffic analysis of COGIP messages, and essentially asking if we can muddle up, if we can make more difficult, if we can make traffic analysis more difficult, what options would be available to us. And Michael responded to this on the mailing list recently, essentially summarizing the types of traffic that are in the network and saying that this kind of traffic is protected at layer 2 in the network, and that this is pretty much all we can do about it at this point. Another issue is related to the use of secExempt mechanism in 15.4 standard, and this was a comment received by Ben Kadek. He says, I think we may need to say more about how JP knows that secExempt is in effect, since that affects a critical piece of the security posture of the network. And it is true that in the current text, we don't have the clear link between how secExempt is set, other than it was considered out of scope. So what I propose here, we have this join rate parameter that can be used by the JRC to enable any particular node in the network to act as a join proxy. So what I propose is that we link the usage of the join rate parameter with the secExempt mechanism, such that when the JRC enables a particular node to act as a join proxy, secExempt gets set at that particular node.
secExempt is it's not per the join proxy. It's in join proxy for each joining node.
Yeah.
So you can't set it until you know who is going to be joining.
Okay, but you need a policy to...
Yeah, you need the policy that you are allowing new nodes to join, but the first message is, of course, coming out of the blue. You don't know who the other one is. So,
okay.
So the first message you get in will always get error because you are not allowing it.
Mm-hmm.
But then in the upper layer, you can see that, okay, check out the policy. If the join join rate is non-zero, then we allow configuring secExempt for that node that just sent the message. But it's not like for this node. It's actually for the remote node. That remote node is allowed to exempt the security when it's sending packets to us.
Okay. Okay. Thanks for the clarification.
And I think the one of the problems is that when we of course after he has finished joining, we want to drop the secExempt. So he of course doesn't send any more packets in clear, but some attacker might send packets in clear, claiming to be him because and actually do some nasty. That's why you want to remove the secExempt so they get dropped automatically by the Mac.
Mm-hmm. So we do this after a certain timeout then for a pledge, or because we don't have a way of knowing at the JP that the pledge joined essentially.
We have, yes, that's actually one of the comments I had earlier, was that it actually would be better for JP to know when the process is finished. Mm-hmm. Currently, and it's also, because one of the problem there is that when we send the final response back, that's actually sent in clear because we don't have, that other one hasn't the keys yet. Mm-hmm. The problem is that the ACK is coming back with using the same security level that was, we sending. So, and we have to we have to be able to receive that ACK, which means we still have to have a secExempt on at that point while we are transmitting that. And of course, if he doesn't get it, we have to retransmit. And so it either be the timeout or some, actually first time we see him sending us any encrypted message, we know that he has, he has the keys and we can drop the secExempt. That's actually, it's one option or
okay.
I don't know what is good. It depends on the protocol a little bit.
Okay, thanks. So to sum up, essentially, we enable the secExempt to be set when join rate is non-zero, but we still need to process an incoming message from each pledge before the secExempt is set for a given pledge.
So secExempt is not global. It's per peer.
And the join rate is something that is a
That's global for the node.
Global for the node.
So
yes.
join proxy has a global setting join rate that tells you whether it's allowing anybody to join.
Yes.
And when he sees the first message, he will set secExempt for that node that it's joining.
Okay. Okay, understood. Then there was an issue also raised by Ben Kadek on the use of CORDGIP max join attempts parameter that appears only twice in the text. And this is essentially a remnant from the time join request was a non-confirmable message. So as now we rely on co-op to declare failure to the application, we simply can remove this and remove it from the text. This is the most simple resolution. Another comment from Ben Kadek considers the parameter additional info that was deemed underspecified because there is one example given in the text that during the processing of the error message, in this parameter we can include a subset of keys that could not be processed. So the idea was that any key compliant with link layer key struct that is defined in the document can be included, but apparently there is more text needed here to make this to not make it underspecified. One other issue that was raised by Ben Kadek is the missing of the label validity for each message. He says that he feels that it's a little unusual to have a consolidated registry for CORDGIP parameters that are used as map labels across different messages without some indication of which map labels are valid in which messages. So essentially, the resolution to this should be to add a paragraph reiterizing and summarizing CDDL fragments, which already indicate a bit what parameters are valid in which CORDGIP objects. So,
Clarifying question.
yes,
We don't need to change the INA section for that, right? We just put that somewhere else.
yes, that's correct.
Because it doesn't matter to INA whether this is used in that message or that message, as long as it's being declared. Then
Yes, that's correct. So the next steps is just to incorporate these resolutions that we discussed here and to publish essentially the 14th version and to declare to ISG that essentially we believe we have addressed all the issues that were raised as part of the review process. Yeah, that's all from me.
Many thanks, Manisha. Do we have a question in the room? Tero, anything, any famous last word on this? Okay, many thanks, Manisha. And with this, we'll be moving around to the next. And that's Michael, and Michael is not there. So Diego, I guess you will have at least the 10 minutes you wanted. We are ahead of time in this meeting. So
yes,
Diego, can you please show up?
can you listen to me?
We can hear you. I don't see you showing up at the queue. There you go.
We have a question, yes?
Hi, no, it's more Stefan Fries. It's more a comment. Michael has a presentation in red, so it may be that he's coming late.
Thank you very much. And we can move his presentation. That's no problem. So Diego, can you check if you can turn the pages?
I think I'm not able
Remove
to
the slides. Normally you should have buttons somewhere.
They asked me to.
Just ask me.
Sorry.
So we are on slide 1, current status.
Wait a minute, they're asking to disable my video here. I cannot see the presentation now.
Well, if you have it somewhere, we are on
there we
slide
go,
one, current
Okay,
status.
go to
But
first
normally
screen. I
you
cannot
should
move
have a window.
I cannot move the slides. Okay, can you come back
Okay, I'll
to
move
the
it. No
first slide,
worries.
please?
Just go.
Okay, then good. I think good morning over there. Okay, this is the midnight over here. This is Diego Duhamne. Where I'm going to present the information element encapsulation for 6TISCH and joint enrollment information, which is version 006. Next, please. It's going to be brief, I hope. So, what's the status of this draft? We have already passed the UGLC. Okay, so we have passed the last call. I have one revision from Carlos Gomez, where I really thank, and we are going through the version 07 from a short revision for Georgios, and who noticed a few typos and a comment on the interpretation of the link. Okay, so that is just it's just simple. It doesn't change the core of the draft. And Tero, I also thank Tero about the enlightenment of how to manage the name of 115.4 and naming now on November 16th. He mentioned this. And for the future, next slide, please. So whatever we have changed here, okay, it's a few punctuation typos, okay, and subsection 1.1.3, it's the usage and meaning of advertisement and router solicitation, which will be cleared. So we clear it up, okay, and we close the expressions at the closing of section 1. We have improved them. And some field description order change also when on section 2, just to join or to arrange them in the order where they appear on the enhanced beacon. Then a correction in between link local link layer, okay, and the usage description of the pivot, which wasn't as clear as it should have been. And finally, a small citation specifically for FRFC 8137, okay, for the subtype. Next, please. Just very few corrections. Finally, we are going to move to 07, okay, after all the comments we have received. And then we expect, we hope this draft to go through the IASG as the next step. And that's it for this draft. This draft, in fact, has been very stable for the last versions. Okay, only small changes, and I think it's ready to move on. Any questions?
Well, actually, Diego, the document was. Well, the
Yes.
you got, I guess, from my IoT Directorate.
Yeah.
The document is submitted to the ISG for review with idea evaluation, and it's in the caring hands of Suresh again, like pretty much every document from.
Okay.
So that's where we are. Just you'll get, you'll be scheduled in the telechat, and you'll get all those reviews.
Okay, great, thank you.
The journey starts.
Based on the length of my queue,
No
probably
problem.
in January. Suresh Krishnan.
Thank you.
January or February, I think. Yeah. Thanks.
Many thanks, Suresh. So thank you, Diego, for staying with us at this late time.
Don't worry.
Of your day. I'm not even sure you're tomorrow already. So thank you very much. Any more questions on this? Okay, and we'll move on then. And the next winner is, yes, we're pretty much. Ling Fei, can you please join? I don't see Teng Fei showing up. Teng Fei, can you please show on the Miteco queue? Big suspense. Ta-da.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Tengfei, I pressed the button. Hope you're there. Well, didn't work well. Can you retry, Tengfei, please? Because maybe the button evacuated you instead of accepting you. There we go. You should be starting. Can you see the buttons to switch the slides, or do you want me to switch the slides, Tengfei?
I didn't see the button to switch the slides.
Okay, I will be doing
just
just.
for me.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks. So this is update for the latest version of the MSF minimal scheduling function. And can you show the next slide, please? So since the last IETF meeting, we have 3 main issues raised up. And first is the rules for cell list, which is pointed out by Pascal. And because the previous version, the MSF doesn't specify where the cells is picked up when generating the 6P request. And so we should have the node to maintain a candidate cell pool for the cell list. And the node will keep listening for the clearness of the cells and to check whether there's a collisions on the cells. And then when generate a 6P request packet, it will pick up the cells from this cell pool. So another issue is schedule consistency pointed out by Christine. And the issue is when the mode is disappeared from the network, such as when it's powered off, the cells is reserved to its parents will live in the parent schedule forever without knowing the neighbor is gone. We used to have the keep alive mechanism. For each node, it will send some keep alive message to the neighbor it has cells have before. And if this keep alive is not acted by its neighbor, and the neighbor will be declared as unreachable, and then it will send a 6P clear to the neighbor. It may be failed, but it will remove the cells to the neighbor from its schedule. So we used to have it in the previous version, like 0.2 version of the MSF. And we removed from 0.3 because at that time we don't have the dynamic scheduling for the autonomous cells. At that time, the autonomous cell will install permanently in the schedule. And in that sense, it may be costly for install one cell per neighbors. But now the MSF has the dynamic scheduling, so those cells could be removed, only installed when necessary. So we bring it back in the latest MSF draft. And the third one is we added the downstream traffic adaptation feature for the latest MSF. And this is the main thing I'm going to explain today in details. And next slide, please. So firstly, the strategy of downstream traffic adaptation is pretty similar to the upstream one. It has 2 counters, and the number cell used, number cells elapsed, and the number cell used will plot plus when a frame is received from its parents on a RX cell, and the number cell elapsed number will increment when the current cell is RX cell to its parents. The difference is the upstream for upstream traffic, it has a negotiated TXL at the initial, but initially there's no negotiated RXL for each node. So we decided to counting the auto RXLs at the beginning to start this downstream traffic adaptation. So to using that, there's there's one problem is during network forming phase. Those cells are used actually by its children and its parents at the same time. And this could cause a collision on these cells. And which, when the MSF is detecting the usage of the downstream traffic, is actually will detect a lower value for this cell usage. But after the network is formed and the traffic from its parents will transfer to the negotiated TX cells. So the mainly traffic is coming from its parents, which is the downstream traffic on this auto ARC cell, which is ideal for the downstream traffic adaptation. So for the reason that most of the downstream traffic are generated after the network is formed, so we can accept this this drawback on during the network is forming phase. And next slide, please.
Yes. Thank you. Just one little point here is basically when the network is being formed, I mean, what you see there is mostly control, not data, right? Because network is not there yet. And so those collisions are a lot related to DIS and DIO messages. And we are working right now at ROLL to minimize the chances of collisions like this by introducing some trickle mechanisms in the DIS. So the prime should actually also be addressed at the upper layer, at the ripple layer, so as to avoid most of those collisions anyway. So, I mean, saying is that's cool that you do it this way, and we are trying to limit the chances that this ever happens during the network formation.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks. Thanks for the information. So we also implement the downstream traffic. We implemented depend on the OpenWSN implementation, and we create a PR especially for this feature, and it's currently merged. And we tested through a testbed from our office building. And we deploy our nodes in 9 rooms from the building, and each room we have 4 OpenMobi, so it's totally 36 nodes there. And so we run this code through the 36 nodes and run a network. And to control the node and debugging, we through the MQTT architecture, which provided by the testbed. And we are able to flash the modes and also reading the serial output from the mode, which allow us to do some analysis about the network performance. And in the next slide, and the experience has 2 phases. First, we are waiting for all nodes are synchronized and building networks, and the figure on the right is showing the structure of the networks after the routing is established. And by default, there's a background upstream traffic around 1 packet per 30 seconds upstream transmitting. And to generate a downstream traffic, we're just using the ping command provided by the OS. And we're pinging to a 1 hop node B5F1 there, and with a speed of 1 ping per 2 seconds is roughly 1 packet per slot frame duration. And the reason why we only just ping this first hop node is the experiment that's trying to show the correctness of the MSF downstream traffic adaptation. So we are recording the data such as the traffic changes, which is when the ping command starts, when the ping ends, in terms of number of transmissions per second. and also the number of TXLs, including the auto TXL and negotiate TXL, to see the changes of the number cell according to the changes of the traffic. And in the next slide, we're showing the results. So there are 4 figures here, and it's grouped by 2. On the left side is figure. I'm sorry. Yeah.
But I guess we have a question on the Jabber.
My name is Ryan. Can you go back to the previous slide? Also, why did you choose a target to be a target without children?
Without children, I was not intent. I think the idea is I will just want choose the first hop one. I think if you have a children or not, it doesn't really influence the behaviors. But maybe your question is why not paying a second hop node? Because I think there is no difference if paying the node with children or not.
Just a comment. Maybe it's better to choose the target with at least one child, like the leftmost part, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you ping the node, because the first hop node will respond ping equal response, is actually there's no traffic interact with the children of the first hop nodes, right?
I think Faye, just clarifying, right? In your picture, you say that the target is F1, but on the text you say it's 71, which is on the left. And so the question is.
I see. I'm sorry. Yes, that's a typo. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for pointing out. Yeah.
So which one is a typo, by the way? Is it is it 71 or F1 target?
F1 is the one is the target.
Okay.
Yeah. Probably here is I didn't fix the typo here. You can see these figures on the top is saying BF71. Yeah. I think this is just a typo. It doesn't influence the results. So there's the 4 figures here. On the left is the result for the DAG route, and on the right side is the result for the target. And for the upper figures, that is showing the number of transmissions during over time, and the bottom figure is for the number of TXLs over time. There are several things to see. And first is for the DAG route. On the bottom figures, you can see it's using the auto TXL as beginning to sending the ping request to its DAG route, which is showing in the green lines in the figure. And then it installed 2 TXLs. 2 TXLs to the target nodes, and the cells are removed from its schedule. And as well on the target node side, and you can see it installed in an additional TXL, because at the beginning it has a 1 TXL there. So it's a result with 2 TXL there. There's a time for target nodes. You can see it's showing there's a 3 cell there, which at the very beginning, it's dropped to 1 cell. I saw there's a question there.
Ryan here. I have a
Yeah.
question. The upper graphs are analyzed using the total cells, right?
The upper figure is showing the number of transmissions
For all the cells.
for all the cell. Yes.
I think it would be just a comment. Maybe it would be good if you analyze it per cells, right? Instead of going for the all cells, total cells.
How you show if only one cell? What do you would like to see from the?
That line is for the total cell analysis. Maybe it would be nice if you just put like per cell, maybe mini lines for per cell analysis. And just a comment.
Yeah, I shown here is trying to using this value to matching the speed of the pinging. If I summarize them together, you can see the lines is actually increasing 1 transmission per 2 seconds. I was trying to connect these lines to the actual speed of the downstream traffic. That's the idea. To showing you some.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for the question.
Can I ask you another question? What doesn't show here is if there were packets which were lost due to starvation of cells. Did you experience starvation? Like not enough cells for your packets, and so you have to drop the packet? Did that occur or not?
During this experiments, it doesn't occur. It doesn't occur is because I actually increasing the queue buffer size. I think that's the reason.
Yes, it's just basically it will occur if the traffic changes too fast for the 6P protocol to allocate the cells, right? So if it's a ping and there is a packet every 2 seconds, then maybe that gives you enough time to allocate the cells. I think it's pretty much the answer. So it can only adapt, at a certain speed. So the changes of the demand must be slower than the changes at which you can adapt to it.
Yeah, that's true.
It should be okay in a network like this because the demand comes multi-hop.
Yeah. So we are running. So we believe the draft, the 07 version is ready. Then we start a 2 weeks working group last go around 1 month ago, and we didn't receive comments either or respondings. Hopefully people review it and just no comments. And so right after the IETF meeting this time, we publish another version, 08. But mainly it's just typo fixing and some word refining. There's no real contents changes. And for the current version, we believe it's ready to submit the IESG. And we need some comments from the community and also the 60 chairs.
Okay, yes, I mean, the workgroup last call completed without any comments, so I left it kind of open, hoping that maybe there would be late comments. And I wanted to discuss now what we do with this document. So we are not getting comments. We have experimental code. It does what it's supposed to do. It's just one possible scheduling function. It doesn't tell you that everybody has to schedule this way. So I think that's good enough, even if we don't have workgroup last call comments to move forward with this document and ask for publication. I wanted to get Suresh's advice on that. And there were a number of people working over a long time on this document, and so.
Yeah, Suresh Krishnan. So personally, if there's not interest in the working group to progress it, I don't want it. But if it's like a bunch of implementations and doing it, I think it's like a mitigating factor. So like, just try a couple more times to prod a few people personally to review the draft if possible.
Yes, I mean, for instance, Ryan, you seem to be very interested in this topic. Would you mind? I mean, if we reopen the workgroup last call, or wait a little bit to ask for the publication, would you mind trying to do a review of it? Yeah, just you make sure it's clear for you as if you wanted to implement. Yeah, I mean, so Ryan is an example of somebody who read it and did not ask for any change in the workgroup last call because he was okay with the spec.
That's fine.
So it's really the question of is
just send him, say it's fine, and that's it. Like I don't mind like just doing it. Like I'll get IoT to review for it anyway.
Yeah.
So if you find like one or two people who look at it and say it's okay.
And this has been a long-standing work in this working group. I mean, we started with other documents which migrated into this one. I mean, so it's been a long-standing, and there are multiple people working on it. So I'm pretty confident it's quite good.
Sounds good.
And then it's like an OF in REPL. Somebody could devise another one. It's not like we impose that everybody work this way. It's just standardizing at least one possible way of doing this job.
That's fine. And as long as you document like in the Shepherd write-up the implementations as well, that could be very useful. Like, if the question comes up, why it's needed.
Okay.
So Tengfei, if you can send out the implementation info to like whoever, Pascal or Thomas, I don't know who's going to shepherd it, or even somebody else. Melissa, maybe?
No, but this was already on one of the slides before.
No, in the Shepherd write-up.
In the Shepherd.
I guess it's going to be me. I started actually. I handled the workgroup last call. Now, if somebody is interested in experimenting with shepherding, I can gladly give away the job. But otherwise, I will be just doing it.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Ryan?
Just additional information. Also, the MSF was implemented in the 6TISCH simulator. And also, there's also a pending pull request in the Contiki Inchi about it. So there are many implementation of MSS, as far as I know.
Yes, and we have a comment from Jabber, Yasuyuki Tanaka, saying that he will review the latest MSF draft and send comments on the mailing list.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, I will be waiting for your review comments before pushing the button.
Cool. Thank you.
And I don't see Michael coming, so like we saw before, he might be in RATS. So anyway, I could just push his slides and we can just look at them. Basically, the work is no more happening at 6TISCH. It's all about saying, hey, it's happening elsewhere. We keep 6TISCH aware as long as 6TISCH is interested, which it is. And then, that does not change the destiny of 6TISCH in any fashion. So basically, yes. I mean, we need to consider what's going on at Lake. We need to look at follow-on constraint voucher, which is really the future of this document. That's pretty much it. So basically the rest of this session is to talk about the future of this working group. And the only document that could have still be open in the working group would be this. So kind of if the discussion leads to closing the working group, then we'll see if we need to reopen this document in Lake, or just consider that it's whatever happens in the other working groups is enough to cover zero touch.
Sorry, Christian. So that's something we can discuss offline with the Lake chairs as well. Yeah, as you said, it doesn't make a difference to what's going to happen to 6TISCH, and so I think you can just get started off. I'll just stay here.
So well, the question to the room now is, do people see that there is work that should happen in this working group for which we were not chartered? Is there any interesting discussion that we could, for which we would need to create new documents? My reading of what's going on is there are two main aspects which have been discussed in the history of 6TISCH and for which we did not complete work. One was scheduling time slots along a track, and the other one was shuffling the cells in order to defeat some tracking attacks. That was Marco's work, Marco Tiloca's work. In both cases, it seems to me that the work is not really IETF work, but mostly IEEE work, if ever it happens. And so I hardly see that we need or can recharter 6TISCH for underviewing this work, which tells me that all the work that I was aware of that was supposed to happen at 6TISCH is now past workgroup class call, apart from the zero-touch thing. Which also tells me that unless somebody just shows up now to say, hey, we've got new work, this is probably the last time we meet. So I talked to Eric and Suresh, and well, the advice was pretty much this, right? We complete the document that we have running, so we keep the mailing list active, we keep the work group, quote unquote, following till those documents go through the ISG. We probably don't need to meet again as a working group at the IETF, and we keep the mailing list active for the future just in case. That's pretty much.
Yeah, Suresh Krishnan. So that kind of makes sense, right? So one thing I kind of like, I want to add there is like, let's say in this period, we keep it open. If something comes up, we'll see how things go. But yeah, generally, I see this heading for closure rather than a recharter, right? But if like some amazing work comes up, why not?
Well, now it's not like the work on all this is finished. Like I said, we are trying to create RAW at the routing area, which will focus on the concept of track and generalize it over multiple MAC-PHY. So people in the room are invited to follow the work which happens in reliable and available wireless, which is really the logical continuation of this particular aspect of the 6TISCH architecture.
Marco Tiloca from RISE. Just a comment to clarify my personal opinion on the belonging of the draft on selective jamming and schedule shuffling to IETF or IEEE. I think it belongs to IETF, in fact. Just reading the introduction from the charter, it mentions 15.4 does not define how the network communication schedule is built. So this is a kind of a gray area because the attempt here was to complete the building of the schedule, in fact. Second, in the latest discussions we had in the list on the draft, mostly with Malisha and Michael Richardson, we were starting to think about how to handle rekeying as to the keys used for that permutation, possibly in CodeJP. And that rekeying is something is definitely not going to happen in IEEE.
Okay, so do you have comments on that? Do you want to go to Mike?
This is Malisha. So my personal opinion is the document is like in between. In what considers the scheduling part, it's more IEEE related, while what considers how the schedule is built is related to 6TISCH. So there are both aspects to the story, in my opinion.
The rekeying can happen only here, though.
So is there energy? I mean, you can start to work using the mailing list, and depending on how that progresses, we can decide to meet again on this.
Yeah, Suresh Krishnan. So, Marco, do you think you can split up the pieces of the draft into stuff that's relevant here and just put the rest of the stuff in an appendix so we can...
So which draft that? Because Marco really
jamming,
said two
right?
things, right? Well, okay, so jamming one is rekeying one. That's two really different aspects, right? So do you want to focus the discussion on jamming? Because we discussed a lot on jamming last time. I don't remember the details, but there was a big reason why it could not be done at the upper layer. I mean, I need to go through the minutes of last time because now it escapes my mind. But
you need a full software implementation of this.
Sorry?
You need a full software implementation of this. The moment some hardware module is involved, we say that really moves to IEEE.
There was something beyond that to do with security or something like that. I forgot. And Tero, do you remember something about it? What we discussed last time, Tero? last time we discussed Marco's proposal on shuffling the time slot to defeat tracking attacks. We ended up with a problem which was related to security, which made it so that you had to do something at IEEE to make it work. And I just don't remember the details of that, but that was my conclusion of last time is, if we go through the minute, that we could only progress that work with changes at the IEEE level. That's my memory of last time.
Okay, so Suresh Krishnan again. So Marco, can you start a thread on the mailing list trying to see if there's interest to work on this? Because it may or may not be relevant is one thing, is there energy is another thing, so I want to see both of them. Okay, so start a thread on the mailing list. We're not closing the group right now, right? So I would think like probably a year away or something, right? Kind of the timeline. So if you can drum up support for the work and there's relevant stuff, we'll do it.
And I can start it again because there was support in the group with 3 positive reviews. Well, then authors asked for adoption, but there was never a call happening.
Yeah, but then, like I said, last time we discussed it extensively at this meeting, and my memory is that we could not do it here because it had dependencies on IEEE that we could not solve within this room. That's my memory of it, right? I may be wrong, but I mean, you're welcome to like start a thread on the mailing list and see where we are and see if my memory is correct on this. For the scheduling of cells, we wanted to do that work here initially. It could have been everywhere because it's mostly defining a data model that comes from, magical God up there and is being pushed to the devices. It's a data model thing, an information model. So do we define this data model information model at the IETF or IEEE? It's this gray area. It could have happened here. But the point is we lost the energy. Nobody really did anything there. There were documents started and they died. So keeping chartered for something and no people doing the job doesn't help. Now, if we see those documents showing up, then Suresh, it will be in your hands to tell us. Then we continue, we meet.
Yeah, that's what I said. Like, so Marco starts like to see if there's like interest and support and relevance. And then if it is, we take it. If not, no, right? That's pretty much it. Like, so
in my mind, there is no, as opposed to your shuffling idea, which is great, by the way. So that's why you get positive reviews, including me. There is no position why it should be IEEE or IETF. It's a data model.
No, I understand, right? We don't want to discuss the actual technology. I'm just talking about the mechanics, how we can go about this, right? So let's do this on the list. Like there's like few people here. That's like, I don't want to make the decision here, but just go on the list, see if there's interest, and then we'll figure out what to do, right? As I said, we have a timeline to figure this out, so it's not urgent. So.
And then there's this question of rekeying. So my memory, my status in my own mind of rekeying was like, most of the time it's not useful because ASN will not wrap or something like that. The rekeying is useful when you want to evacuate some devices because that's pretty much the only way you can get away, you can remove somebody. Yes, so what else exactly needs to be done is what I'm confused. So why do we need work on rekeying? I mean,
the moment group membership change, you're supposed to rekey the network anyway. We found a way to distribute new keys for this permutation together with the process described in CodeJP. And that has some complications for the moment where you have overlapping between the old key material and the new one. And we were starting to think of a way to handle that issue. There was some earlier discussion with Malisha and Michael on the list.
As a clarification, we're talking about the interaction of the permutation mechanism by Marco and minimal security. Minimal security already defines the rekeying mechanism, which doesn't play so well with the permutation mechanism of Marco. Is that correct? Yeah.
So if your mechanism comes into play, we will have to look at keys as well. As long as we don't do the permutation game, what we have is good enough.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's re-clarifying stuff.
But it's not our intention to change anything in CodeJP and the way it works. This is just an extension, more keys to be delivered in the rekeying messages and how you can make this very rekeying work. It has no impact on CodeJP itself.
Does it mean that everything could be done in one document?
That's ideal to me.
Okay.
Hello, this is Yichao. So interoperability is something we are quite interested. Now, since the standard is wrapping up and there are many updates since the last plug test, I'm just wondering, is there any plan for plug test, like for 6TISCH?
Well, thank Faye. Maybe you can speak on behalf of Thomas or something. Thomas has been really leading that kind of activity.
Yeah. So what I know for planning, I need to talk with Thomas to see other plan. What I know is Yacht is working on some, trying to do some interoperability with Contiki implementation. So yeah, we may doing something, but I can let you know later.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah.
From Jabber, we have a question from Diego Duhovne. What would happen with potential new scheduling functions if they ever appear?
Like we said, we have a mailing list. We don't close the working group. We just don't have a plan to meet next time. That's pretty much where we are right now. I mean, there is not enough content that's very active to justify asking for a meeting next time, unless something explodes on the mailing list, and then we'll decide. Pretty much.
Like sounds good. So like Suresh Krishnan, so the working group is kind of going to go dormant, like waiting for the documents to finish. And if work comes up, it's happened before, like same thing happened for DHC, right? So we didn't meet like twice and then they did. Like, so documents came up and they found work. So it's really about like work showing up and interest in it to keep it going. But the default is it's going to close if nothing. Let's say we put a timeline, once the documents are done, it closes. That's the plan. But it's open until then, really. If not something new comes up, we continue.
Yes, I believe that 6TISCH was a fantastic experience. It was really interesting in the fact that it was orchestrating a lot of work in multiple documents and providing the architecture that ties them all together. And so that's one aspect of it. The second aspect is driving open source. There were multiple open source implementation, and the working group also acted as a hub outside of the IETF to integrate those open source implementations. And finally, the interaction with Etsy for all those plug tests. So those three aspects put together and orchestrated from within an IETF working group. I think that was a really, really interesting experience, and that leads to effective code running and interoperating, open source implementation and RFCs here and in multiple groups. I think this group did very well. And I wish to thank, as probably the last time we meet, I wish to thank the ADs and all the participants over the last 6 or 7 years for which we did 6TISCH, for the extensive work that happened here.
Perfect. Thank you, Pascal. And thanks, Thomas, too. Thank you.
Okay, and we're just scheduling you back an hour of your life. So I would like to say we meet again, but no. So the meeting is adjourned. Did everybody sign the blue sheets? Everybody signed? Okay.